Hello viewers at home, I'm your host Dr. T.I.
Hello, I'm your host Prof. TD. A hearty welcome from my side.
If you are joining us for the first time, you're most welcome, and please don't forget to subscribe. And we'd like to thank all the viewers who have subscribed to our channel to a point that we have more than 100 subscribers. We appreciate your efforts, we appreciate your time, and as we continue to engage in this marriage lockdown corner, we received a number of comments wherein people wanted us to focus a little bit on the ShortFuse Syndrome. And then today we just going to do that for your sake and for our sake too, because learning never stops. We continue to learn every day. So, as I've already introduced the topic of today, a ShortFuse Syndrome, I'm going to ask Prof to give us what is the definition of the ShortFuse Syndrome?
Yes, indeed. Today we're dealing with how best do we deal with the ShortFuse Syndrome. And when we talk about ShortFuse Syndrome, we make particular reference to anger. People with short temper who easily get irritated and get angry in no time. So in a way, if you're having a conversation with this kind of people, they easily get irritated, get angry, and start to throw their toys. And that's how we define ShortFuse Syndrome.
And this ShortFuse Syndrome, sometimes it can be physical or verbal, or sometimes non-verbal.
Yes, if you get angry, sometimes you elevate it into becoming physical, wherein you start to fight one another physically. But sometimes it's more in the area of verbal diarrhea, where people will start to lash out and yeah, you won't stand it once all the ugly words start to flow.
And then sometimes people can explain it in a way to say, you know, I'm short-tempered, or I've got this ShortFuse Syndrome because he or she always poke me when I'm quiet, or always is the one who starts with these small battles and issues in our marriage.
Yes, it depends on how you know and understand one another. Because indeed, some do use the ShortFuse Syndrome as a way of dealing with the other.
Oh.
Because basically, if I know that you easily get angry, then I'll just push the button.
Oh, I see. Hey.
And once I push the button, you are in my corner, you are angry. Then if I benefit from your anger, or your anger makes me happy, I don't know if it does, but sometimes there are people who enjoy seeing other drowning in sorrow, drowning in anger, and yeah, without help.
Or it can be used as a scapegoat to the issue on the table. Remember, in our conversation previously, we indicated that with these matters which arise in our marriages, we need to engage one another, we need to sit around the table. So this ShortFuse Syndrome can be used around the table as a scapegoat to run away from the discussion, because if one is angry, there is no way the discussion can continue.
Ordinarily, when you want to stop something from happening, you can easily throw tantrums. You can easily get irritated, angry, or just be silent, withdraw from the conversation. And in that way, we'll never discuss the issue at hand. So you have avoided it, you have shelved it somehow, or you try by all means to sweep it under the carpet as if it will go. And unfortunately, it doesn't. It remains there until such time that you will be able to sit down and resolve the matter.
Okay, Prof, before you take us through to how this ShortFuse syndrome manifests, remember we got this comment of one of our viewers saying, I tried to engage my partner around the table, but the partner was not responding. I mentioned the issue on the table to say this is the problem which we have, but my partner didn't respond.
Yes, yes, it does happen, especially when you know this kind of conversation is going to drive a wedge between the two of you, and the other one is not privy to the danger which is coming. And you're not opening up, because that's another critical area where people don't open up, don't want to open their hearts, because sometimes you are afraid you'll be hurt. Once people know what is inside you, then it's easy to use that against you. So that's another challenge that people ordinarily face in their marriages.
Okay, in our previous conversations, I've highlighted something which was mainly for ladies, saying that sometimes when we sit around the table with our partners as women, they quickly close themselves within a box or whatever a place where they hide themselves, to a point that whatever you are presenting as a woman, you can think that the person no longer cares about you, your partner no longer loves you like before, because when you try to address issues, they withdraw. And I remember I said, please mention one problem at a time, so that they will know what to deal with, unlike to bring everything around the table, because the more we bring all those issues around the table, reminding them about what happened last year, reminding them about what you said last week, it drives them to a corner wherein they cannot even get out anymore. And then, but I'm also appealing to my brothers outside there, that please try by all means, that when your partner, your wife, your dear wife, is hating about some of the issues in your marriage, please take courage and address those issues. Because the moment you ignore her, don't think the problem is going to go away. The moment you sweep it under the carpet, the problem is not going to go away. And that is where 5 months later, the very same problem you ignored will come back now with other packages, which still you will not be able to deal with.
The other issue which contributes towards that is that we don't make efforts to understand one another, how we function. Because sometimes we as men, normally when you realize that there are two bulls in the house, as much as your wife wants to talk, but the approach is one of bullying issues, making sure that she becomes dominant, then you withdraw to say, but if we have two heads in the house, then there's a problem. And it's also a sign that says something might be wrong in terms of how you raise the issues. So it's important that even when we talk about issues, how we raise them remains critical.
Can we say maybe an issue will remain an issue irrespective of how it's addressed?
Exactly.
So I think all of us, we need to take courage, even when the issue is addressed out of anger or the issue is addressed politely, but we need to look at the center of what is presented, the problem.
Yes, yes. The main issue is that the issue remains an issue.
Mm-hmm.
It will never move, it will never go away, and it needs to be solved. But it is also critical for us to start learning. Because as and when we progress with life, with age, we have to unlearn certain things.
Yes.
Those that we have considered to be traditional ways of dealing with issues. This is how I'll deal with an issue as a man. This is how I'll deal with an issue as a woman. Then we have to unlearn such things, because you might have a very good and valid issue, but destroy the entire argument by the manner in which you want to raise it.
Yeah.
As much as we're focusing today on the ShortFuse Syndrome, it's a manner in which people respond to issues. You get angry so that you stop the conversation. Mm-hmm. You withdraw so that you stop the conversation. And we are saying it's not right. We have to start to move beyond that, so that we are able to resolve our issues.
And I think this is where many conversations often and always have a breakdown.
Yeah.
Instead of addressing the issue, they address each other. The way how you presented it to me, I'm not comfortable with it. And
of course, it will always be an issue.
But I like the fact that you're saying we can always unlearn what we have learned.
Yes.
Is the right way of doing things. So today, can you please take us through on how this ShortFuse syndrome manifests in our marriages?
They manifest in 3 areas. Mm-hmm. The first area is communication. And already, as and when we were talking, we were touching a bit on that. Mm-hmm. And when we talk communication, when you read the biblical text, Amos 3:3, it says, how can the two walk together unless they have agreed?
Right.
So communication is key if you want to make your marriage work at all material times. You must never shut the door of communication. Communication, once you see a person shutting down the communication door, then you know the ShortFuse syndrome is kicking in. And it needs to be arrested. It needs to be sort of diffused. The second area is failure to solve problems. Because solving problems in marriage is a skill. Mm-hmm. That which we need to learn. How best do we solve our problems? It involves communication. But solving the problem itself is a skill. And that is where the issue of sitting around the table, trying to resolve what is there, what is on the table, it's key, it's important. And we'll come back to that when we talk about solution. And indeed, the last one is anger itself. Mm-hmm. And that is where the issue of anger management kicks in. To say one of the things that which we have to learn is to how best do I manage my anger. Suppose I get angry, because I always remind people to say, look, between you and me, nobody has the monopoly to anger. So you can get angry, I can get angry.
Yeah.
But how do we resolve those issues. And that's where we should go.
Yeah, this is, I think, ShortFuse syndrome is a very critical element within our marriages. It can build or break our marriages.
Destroy it.
Because as you're showing us how they manifest, and when it comes to anger, I'm asking myself how many doors which have been banged just because somebody was angry. I'm leaving you with your kids. How many utensils which have been broken in your house? How many times? Maybe you are buying some of your furniture or some of your utensils for the 5th time because last time you broke them because you were angry.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's sad. It's sad because when you are angry, remember, you can say things which are very destructive. And that's why last time we even spoke about calculating words that you say to the other. Because it's important. But it's not only words. Sometimes we start to throw our toys, throw some tantrums, break things, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's where the whole issue of gender-based violence comes in.
And the issue of destroying one another emotionally and psychologically.
Yes.
Let's say I'm sitting here,
yes,
and maybe sometimes, it's an example.
Yeah.
You said to me, you are nothing without me.
Yeah.
You are a doctor today because of me. The hairstyle you have is because of me. So you can't say a thing. In that manner, people are not aware that they are destroying one another bit by bit. Because I will look at myself and say, on my own, what do I have? Nothing.
And you forget that we need to affirm one another, we need to compliment one another, we need to, at all material times, work as a unit. Because we are working for the same institution. We are working for the future of the same institution. If it has children, including children who are in there.
So the point is, you cannot attract that which you attack. So if you want your wife or your husband to love you dearly so, there is no way you can attack him or her. You will always make sure to do positive things.
You're now speaking about consequences. To say, if you are angry, then there are a lot of things that will be affected, including the bedroom. To say, how do you get the best out of your husband? How do you get the best out of your wife when there is anger in between? There's a devil in between. And therefore, your romantic life will be spoiled. Your communication life will be spoiled. The things that you would normally do together will also be affected. Because it's not easy for me to drive with my wife when I'm angry with her. Or if she's angry with me, if I say, no, let's go out for a shopping, let's go out to eat together, then you won't get the positive answer. So that's why we need to resolve the anger issue. And how do we resolve this ShortFuse syndrome? How do we deal with that?
Yeah, please take us through that.
The first thing I've already hinted, mentioned to say, the two of us must just realize that if I don't get angry today, it's not that I can't get angry.
Everybody can be.
Everybody can be angry. So we need to agree that nobody has the monopoly to anger.
And this way, we are saying to you, what we are presenting real information.
Yes.
That the two of us, remember I said, we are two sinners in this marriage. So, yeah, we get angry too.
Exactly. I mean, it has not been 25 years of roses being delivered every day. No. Sometimes we do get angry,
Yes.
but we have learned to grow, to understand that anger is not helping us in any way. So we have to, it has to be a thing of
It has to be
the past.
managed. It has to be managed.
And sometimes anger, and that's where, when we talk number 2 as a solution, stop lying. Stop lying. Because you see, lies will always evoke anger in the process, other than being truthful, which is the third element in terms of how do we resolve. Stop lying and be truthful. I always tell men to say, if for instance you were tempted, say it. You were driving with your wife and you saw a lady there, she caught your attention because maybe she's wearing a miniskirt, and you know how men are wired. And you happen to be sidetracked by this lady. And when the wife says, no, hey, what are you doing? No, don't say, I know, I was checking this or that. Just say it to say, look, I was attracted by that woman right there.
We need to know you better then.
So stop lying. And then be truthful. In that way, this package, you'll realize that it will assist us in terms of stopping the anger issue.
Remember, when you say you need to tell the truth and stop lying, I think this also applies to the issue of protecting one another. Which sometimes one cannot feel comfortable when one is saying, you know, I see what we are doing now, it's not okay, it's not going to be okay later on or after on. And then was I'm not a child and all those things. Remember, the other person is protecting you because he or she loves you the most.
It's important to understand that there are certain things that will be said because you want to be protected. Because on our own, sometimes we're more vulnerable than we know. And that is why it's critical that if you get an advice from your wife, take it to the chin. And that is where we say truth hurts, but it liberates in the whole process.
It has, can I mention this?
Yes.
I know that there are pastors who are also watching this, and thank you very much for that. In the church which you are leading, as a pastor, you are a father to everybody.
Exactly.
You are a leader to everybody. People come to you for advice, for counseling, and all those things. And please take care of your dear wife. Before you can continue to look after everybody else in the church, your wife is your first church. And at some point, because she's down there, sitting there, she can say to you, my dear husband, I can see that that mama, that one, I can see that her intentions are not good. Only to find out that because the pastor does not have these other eyes to see what is happening, we say, no, remember, I'm the pastor, I'm everybody's pastor, and all those things.
Yeah, but it's in a way stupidity on our side. Not to realize that if you are, for instance, working as a leader, be it a pastor, be it an elder, be it a deacon, wherever you're leading, people will always be attracted to you. And some, when they come to you, the intention, as always, is to overthrow the government of the other. We've seen it happening more often. And that's where you need to come out and defend your wife. Otherwise, she'll be destroyed. The same applies to your pastoral women or any other women who is married to a leader. You need to know that if you are not doing your best in terms of how you look, how you engage on issues, how you behave, you need to unlearn certain things so that you become compatible to the leadership model that must be displayed within the family context. And as and when we continue with resolving the issues, we have made mention that one, nobody has a monopoly to anger, and then 2, stop lying, and then 3, be truthful, and then 4, ensure that you embrace what we call sunset clause in marriage. And by sunset clause, I'm referring to what stands in Ephesians 4, where the Bible will say, yes, you can be angry, but let the sun not go down. And by the sun not going down, it means that you must make efforts to sit down, engage respectfully so, and try to find out solutions. So fifth, the issue of communication will remain key as always. Don't run away from the table, and don't want to expose one another by running to your family members, running to your friends, running to colleagues, because that will destroy you. It's important that you always try as much to communicate with one another, and if you fail to do so and you want facilitators to assist, then go to your pastors, your marriage counselors. They are trained to handle such kind of conversation. I mean, in our 25 years of experience, we have seen it where you will sit for 3 hours.
And more than that.
And people will say whatever they want to say, and you take it to the chin, and you move on with life. And lastly, be ready to forgive and move on with life. Because reconciliation is key. Forgiveness is key. So if I know I will come to you, I will open up, because I know that you'll be able to have grace, you'll be able to embrace me, cover me with mercy. And in that way, we save our marriage. We save our marriage.
It's true. Yes. I just want to go back to the sunset clause.
Yes.
Sunset clause.
Yes.
That right now, as we are presenting this conversation, somebody might be watching out there who has been angry for a week, for a month, and beyond. And the person is saying, you know, what my partner did to me, it's so terrible. I cannot forgive him or her. The text which Prof mentioned earlier on, it made us to realize that it is a sin. And just imagine how many of us have been committing this sin every now and then. Every now and then.
Yeah.
So it's very, very critical, because remember, the person you live with, your partner, your spouse, this is the person you have vowed to live with for better and for worse. So here is the worst. You are angry over whatever you are angry about. Then the text is saying it is a sin. It doesn't matter the season where your marriage is right now. If your marriage is in spring, thank God. Hold on. This time will come to pass.
Yes.
And you will enjoy later on.
Of course. After every storm,
Yes.
there's joy, there's laughter, there's more encouragement, and that's why we are saying, please stop this short fuse syndrome in your marriage. Allow yourself to deal with issues, communicate, and ensure that you manage your conversation in such a way that it ends up peacefully.
And if you are experiencing trouble in your marriage, which you find it hard to resolve, the Bible says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Wait on the Lord.
Yes. Shalom.
And please, don't forget to subscribe. Those who are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe, share with your friends, and give comments wherever you feel like you want to give comments. And until next time,
Shalom.
Shalom.